Racist, terrorist, some of the words that his fellow Israelis have used to describe American-born Rabbi Meir Kahane. Formerly head of the violence-prone Jewish Defense League in this country, Kahane is now a member of the Israeli parliament. Israeli President Chaim Herzog refused to meet Kahane when he was elected last July, and his current anti-Arab campaign has made him more controversial than ever. What's all the controversy about? Here's what Rabbi Kahane has to say.
And I want to make it clear to those dogs that are standing there, there is no such thing as an Arab village in the state of Israel. It is a Jewish village that is temporarily inhabited by Arabs.
I want to remove the Arabs from this country because otherwise there will be a bloodbath of Jews here. This country is going to turn gradually into a Northern Ireland. And there will be attacks by Arabs upon Jews and counterattacks by Jews upon Arabs in blood on both sides. I don't want to kill them. I wish them well elsewhere. For 2,000 years, the world loved us because we were non-violent people, and they loved us on to death with their pogroms and crusades and their inquisitions and their Auschwitz as well. I don't want the words love. I want respect, and I get that only by having self-respect. Of course I'm for violence when it is needed. Of course I'm against violence when it is not needed. Someone hits you, a Jew in America turns on and says, now what did I do to deserve it? That's not normal. Someone hits you, you hit him back. That's what the Sephardic Jew knows, and that's what I say, and he says, thank God somebody is as normal as I am, and I'll vote for him. I want the votes. I want the power. I want to be the Prime Minister of Israel. Not because I want to be the Prime Minister, but because I want to be able to do the things that I know have to be done before tragedy strikes this country. When the Almighty took us out of Egypt and he said, you're free, he didn't say, now go live in Great Neck, Long Island, or in Golders Green, England. He said, go, all of you, to live in the land of Israel for a reason. I want to create a specific religious Jewish state. That's why Zionism, political Zionism, came into being. Now, if that's true, I have no intention of losing this state to bullets or to babies, because I don't want to live as a minority in this country under Arabs. So let's get one thing clear. I'm against Western democracy. The Western concept, which states that whether you're Jewish or non-Jewish, you have an absolute right to have equal rights in this country. If that's true, then Zionism is racist. A racist is someone who says, I'm better than you are by birth, and you can never be as great as I am, ever. That's a racist. I say that the Jewish people is the chosen people, but any non-Jew who wants to convert can be a Jew. That's not a racist. Of course I believe that God gave us the truth at Sinai. That doesn't make me a racist. I have no guilt. The problem with most Jews is that whereas most people breathe air, Jews breathe guilt. I don't breathe guilt. I believe it is better to live than die. It is better to win than lose. And it's better to have a Jewish state that's hated by the whole world than an Auschwitz that's loved by it.
I'm Ted Koppel in Washington for all of us.
Bring you the people who are the news on Evans and Novak.
I'm Robert Novak. Roland Evans is out of Washington. In his absence, Fred Barnes of the New Republic and I will question one of the most controversial political figures in Israel, Rabbi Meir Kahane, an advocate of an all-Jewish Israel who leads his own political party. Born in Brooklyn, Rabbi Kahane first came to public attention in 1968 when he founded the Jewish Defense League. His activism put him in the headlines, and for 11 months in federal prison. In 1971, he went to Israel and there founded his own political party. After failing twice, in 1984, he was elected to the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. In calling for an all-Jewish state free of Arabs, Kahana has generated furious opposition from Israeli leaders. But his party is gaining in popularity and is expected to pick up additional Knesset seats in the next election. Rabbi Kahana, if the present duly elected government of Israel makes a deal with the state of Jordan and with the Arabs regarding land, will you accept that as the legal formulation of the state, or will you enter into civil disobedience?
There's not the slightest question that the government of Israel, no government of Israel, has the slightest right to deal away land that is Jewish. And there's not the slightest doubt that just as there are Jews in Israel who would resort to breaking the law if Meir Kahana ever achieved power, civil, and I emphasize this, non-violent acts will be taken by many, many Jews, many of whom are opposed to Meir Kahana. We will not allow any government to give away parts of Eretz Israel, the land of Israel.
Fred Barnes and I will be back with more questions for Rabbi Kahana after these messages.
Rabbi Kahana, following up on Bob's question, the land under discussion and a compromise, of course, is the land that the Israeli government conquered in 1967 in the West Bank and in the Gaza. What sort of civil disobedience would you take if the government of Israel negotiated away some or all of that land?
First of all, let me make quite clear that Israel didn't conquer anything. Israel came back to the lands of the Bible. If we have no right to a Hebron on the West Bank, we have no right to a Tel Aviv that was built in 1905. Indeed, our claim to a Hebron, a Bethlehem, is the only legitimate claim that we have to anything else. Now, what will we do? There is no question that if tens of thousands of Jews, and there will be that and more, who simply sit and block roads, and you simply cannot arrest tens of thousands of people, we will demand a referendum. And in a referendum, we will win. In short, that which Dr. Martin Luther King did, we will. And perhaps someday they'll make a national birthday in Israel for Meir Kahana.
Well, this would probably, if there were a deal, provoke a new national election. What would happen in that election?
Well, first of all, Shimon Peres will come out as the leading party. Hardly a majority, but the leading party.
Shimon Peres is the present prime minister, member of the Labor Party.
Right. And Meir Kahana will be the third largest party in Israel. The polls now show us with between 10 and 11 of the 120 seats. But as many people have said that for each person that admits to the post that he'll vote Kahana, there's a second one who's afraid to admit it but will vote.
Well, at some point, you predicted that you will be prime minister at some point. So at some time, those people will actually have to vote for you, the ones who say they would like to. What is your scenario for becoming prime minister?
Well, it's a rather sad one. In short, the only way that I gain power is through the tragedy of Jews being killed. And that is what is happening, and that's what will happen. There is no question that the Arabs of Israel and the Arabs of the areas that have been liberated don't want to live under Jews. And they have grown stronger and bolder. And with every Jew killed at the funerals, you hear Kahana. I wish that were not so. That's not worth it to me. But that is the scenario. As things get worse for Israel, tragically they get better for Meir Kahana.
Rabbi Kahana, if you, and I believe you are serious in thinking that you will be prime minister someday, you also know American politics about as well as you know Israeli politics. Yes. Don't you know that if you are prime minister, that is the end of U.S. military and economic aid to Israel, which Israel is dependent on?
First of all, in politics, there is nothing that is never, ever definite. I don't know. It's about time that people began thinking in terms of America doesn't back anybody because they're good or they're bad. They back countries out of self-interest. I don't think that will be worse than some of the other countries that this country is backing. If America believes that Israel is not to its self-interest, it will not back it, even if Abba Eban would be the prime minister, God forbid. Our point has to be that we will attempt to show America that we are to its interest. If they buy, it's fine. If they don't, then we'll have to get along without America and with God.
You think that's possible?
I know it's possible. I believe that God is stronger than Ronald Reagan.
You know, Rabbi Kahana, the reason, of course, that I say, and I think you partially agree with me, that there would be some movement to cut off aid for a Kahana-led Israel is that you say that democracy is incompatible with Zionism, that Israel must choose between being a democratic state or a Jewish state, and all the arguments made by the pro-Zionists in Congress is that this is the only democracy in the Middle East. If it's no longer a democracy, why should we support it?
For the same reason that America backs such wonderful democracies in that area as Arabia and Kuwait and Jordan, one of the finer examples of democracy. Stop this nonsense. If I were a pro-Israel congressman, I would stop talking about backing Israel because it is this or because of that. Let's say back Israel because it is to the American interest to do so, period.